Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
John, can I tell you something which I found out about last week, which made me happy in one respect, but made me sad in another respect?
Oh, please do.
And you're not going to make some kind of a crazy comment about me being sort of bifurcated or something like that?
No, what is it, Brad?
Okay. Remember the story we had this last month, or maybe goes back to May, when Alpha Media, which is a big radio company that owns stations all over the country, and they own a bunch of stations here in the state of Missouri, in Moberly, and to the south of us, down in the Farmington area, and in the Lebanon area.
Don't they have something in Lebanon, too?
Right, exactly. And one day, they fired everybody. They literally got rid of their air staffs and all their stations, and especially what we call in the radio business the clusters. The cluster meaning, one ownership of many stations, and essentially they all have them in the same box, and people float back and forth between stations and duties and things like that. The cluster up in Moberly, which did tremendous amount of local news and tremendous amount of local sports. As a matter of fact, you even referenced the point that you had their stories in your johncombest.com site many times, correct?
All the time. I had them bookmarked, Brad.
Right. Well, guess what? You're not doing it anymore because they're gone. They fired everybody.
Gone?
Okay. I can't name the name. I tried to get him on the air to talk about this, and I understand he's a little bit scared of the fact that apparently he's still got some kind of a severance package from Alpha. So I just got the message yesterday that he's essentially saying, well, I don't know if I really. The reason I wanted to get him on the air, and if you know whether it's or not, that the city of Moberly had like a banquet for all these fired people to show their appreciation for all their hard work over the years. And I
didn't know that, Brad.
They gave awards to these people who got canned.
Wow, that's really... Now, who put it together? Was it the chamber?
Well, I got to go and research this a bit more. I'm not exactly who did it. And matter of fact, I believe the Missouri Broadcasters Association was also involved in it, because I saw a couple postings on a couple of the socials, and I saw a couple of these radio people who, unfortunately, some of them worked there for, decades, who essentially one day woke up and didn't have a job anymore. They had some certificates they were holding up, and one of them was from the Missouri Broadcasters Association. So I'm not exactly sure. If you want, I'll do a little bit more digging on this. And like I said, I know one of the guys who worked at the station, and I won't go any further than that, because if I say anything more, people will pretty much figure out exactly who it is. And
I got you. I remember. And you've talked about it on the air before.
Right.
We get it.
Well, the idea being is that this is the impact that a local media operation, especially a radio operation, had on a city and an area, not necessarily just Moberly, because, there are a lot of different areas around there. Even to the point, Moberly's in an interesting position because they're almost to a little bit shadowed by the Jefferson City Columbia market. Wouldn't you sort of say that as well too?
Yeah, I think that's fair, for sure.
Right, and because it's not a huge area as far as population wise. Once we've talked about this before in the state of Missouri. Once you get north of I-70, especially when you get about 40 or 50 or 60 miles north of I-70, there's not much up there. What did you say that the entire? What's your thing about the entire one congressional district is like the northern part of Missouri?
Yeah, pretty much essentially the entire north band, like north of 70. Yeah, when you're looking at population, now obviously, Brad, you're not making a commentary on the folks or the value of the towns up there. You're talking about population.
Well, yes. Once again, it's a rural area. It's primarily agricultural.
That's right. It's corn and soybeans, baby.
Right, and I don't know of. There's probably some manufacturing, but very little manufacturing in that area. And once again, the bread and butter is literally bread and butter. It's wheat and it's dairy and it's things like that. It's like crops. Anyway, I'll see if I can find more about it. And I thought it was a really nice gesture of a city essentially saying, you know what, we're really sad to see you go, but we're going to try to congratulate you on the way out. You know what I'm saying?
I do know. And, I think probably the best way for them to spread the news of congratulations would maybe buy some Facebook ads or maybe some TV ads, Brad. Maybe put up some yard signs. That might be a better way to congratulate. I mean, I think your dollar would go further. I mean, you're certainly not going to dump it into radio. I mean, come on.
The sad part of this is, what's so sad about this is, John's giving me grief because of the fact that I'm the guy who's saying, look, radio is still the number one reach vehicle. Television has, especially OTA, over-the-air broadcast television, whatever you're calling it, in the last 20 years has completely cratered as far as the number of people watching. But yet, matter of fact, I won't say who this is, but I will just read you a text chain of someone that I know that I got last night, and the text chain is here's hold it. The text chain is, good Lord, when do we vote? Ad after ad after ad after ad. This is a friend of mine who's sitting there watching TV last night, and here it is, July 1st. Yesterday was July 1st. We've got, 35 more days today, officially, 35 more days today till election, and it's nonstop political ads on television.
Yeah, Brad, last night, as I was preparing to go to bed, I had a friend text me visuals from a Mike Kehoe ad they saw, and they said, OMG, have you seen this ad? And I hadn't seen it yet. And it's a Kehoe ad that puts Jay Ashcroft's face into a fish. Have you seen this one?
No.
Okay, I'm going to look for it, and then I'm going to add it. We do have a playlist on the Brad and John Show YouTube page of ads. Right now, the only one I have up is an Eigel ad, but I'll look for this one. It's from the American Dream Pack, which is the Kehoe pack. The American Dream, baby, Dusty Roads. And it turns Jay Ashcroft's face into a fish, and then I think they have some Chi-Com leader in there too. But anyway, a friend of mine who's a civilian, who's not at all involved in politics, sent it to me because they thought it was funny, and I hadn't seen it yet. But again, it just goes to the fact when normal people, like non-political people, when civilians are commenting on all these ads, you're just about to reach overkill.
Well, that's my point, exactly. And the crazy part of this is, and once again, maybe self-serving, I'm the guy waving the hand saying, and this is probably what bothers me the most. I am a locally owned and operated radio station. We have 3 of them, okay? And I will give credit to my competitors, to, Steve Casper, who's involved with, 2 or 3 stations, and the Buzz Eckelkamp family that, with Tracy Ellis, locally owned and operated stations, okay? We don't get anything. I mean, we get zip. But yet, who gets all the money? Well, it's TV stations and it's social media, okay? Guess where that money goes? If you're buying any of the TV stations in St. Louis, that money doesn't stick around in St. Louis. It goes to wherever, Sinclair, where they're in Ohio or something like that. And who owns Channel 4 now? Is that Gray? And you still got
I think so. I think so, Brad.
You got Tegna that owns Channel 5. Okay, once again, when you run ads on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, on any of those things, guess where that money goes? It doesn't stay local. It goes to Zuckerberg, who is spending Zuckerbucks to promote democratic causes and liberal causes, okay? So, and what's crazy is, I've said this a couple times, I got myself a little bit of trouble with one of the chambers in St. Charles County. When I brought this up, I said, you're talking about, doing, being local, but, spend your money locally. But yet when you promote all this crazy, weird social media stuff, guess what? That money doesn't stay here locally. Well, you have to be on social media. Well, okay, whatever. Speak out of both sides of your mouth. You know what I'm saying?
I do know. And for folks who want to hear more about Brad talk about this, if you go to our YouTube channel, Brad talked about this Friday segment C, Thursday segment B, and Wednesday segment B, I believe, Brad's dissertations on the value of supporting local media and what candidates get wrong. Check out our YouTube page for those.
Okay, John, I'm going to throw you a curve, and I know you won't get this right. I'm almost 100% sure. Today is the 33rd anniversary of a local event. Do you know what that day is, what that event is?
Okay, hold on real quick. 33 years ago would be what year? 1991?
I believe so, yes. 33 years ago. I believe it was this date, July 2nd, 1991. Something happened in the St. Louis area. I won't say specifically. It's in a municipality. I'll give you one little clue, which shook the country and still has ramifications to this very day.
Is it Axl Rose going nuts?
Yes, you're right.
Is it really?
Yes, today is the...
Oh, nice. We talked about this on one of the first Brad and John shows.
Right.
Yeah, at Riverport. And tell the story about the cameraman, Brad.
Well, supposedly, there's a couple different versions of this, but there's a thing in like, for example, I have sitting right here in the studio. once again, I'm a radio guy, but people think, oh, he's a radio guy. To my right, I have 3 nice Canon cameras that I use almost on a daily basis. To my left, I have 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 GoPro cameras. Okay, I'm a radio guy, but I'm not. Okay, there's a thing called ILC. And an ILC is what they call an interchangeable lens camera. And essentially that's your DSLRs or now your full frame, mirrorless cameras and stuff like that. Essentially it's a professional body. Once upon a time, only pros use stuff like this. Now, the market's gotten to the point where a lot of people have DSLRs or SLRs, whatever you want to call it, okay? And in most concert venues, there's a sign that says, professional cameras not allowed, because they don't want you in there shooting pictures that you're going to be able to sell for money.
For sure.
Because they want to claim all that. So what happened was somehow some guy got into the front row, and I've been told the guy was like part of a biker gang or something like that. He was like a motorcycle gang member, and he had a professional style camera. He's on the first or second row at Riverport, and he's taking pictures of Axl Rose. And Axl Rose calls him out, essentially says, "That guy right there," when he's in the middle of a song, says, "The guy right there, get that camera." And when security didn't move quick enough, he jumps off the stage on top of this dude. Okay, just think about that for a minute. You're at a concert, and the performer, let's say you're in that first row or second row or third row, and all of a sudden a little skirmish, turns out that the guy on stage is yelling at the fact that somebody's got a camera, and then he jumps on top of the guy. That's when what was Shelley's comment? She goes, the defecation hit the rotary oscillator, I think was her term. Okay, yeah. And the place blew up, and it turned into Riot Zone Central, okay?
And a national story.
Right, and a huge national story. And to the point where they tore the place apart. They were ripping seats off the floor and stuff like that. And the band got PISSED and jumped in their tour bus and left. Concert over. We're done.
It wasn't the last time Axl Rose would come to St. Louis, though, is it, Brad?
Well,
because what happened?
Well, but then they tried him. Wasn't that the deal? He was like,
yeah, he had to come back for a trial.
Right. And to this day, in the history of live concerts, they talk about Altamont and stuff like that. If you know what Altamont's all about, go back in history. If you just put it into a browser, just put in Altamont and concert, and you'll get what that's all about, which interestingly enough also involved motorcycle gangs, the Hells Angels. It's like one of these footnotes in concert history and rock and roll history that happened right here in St. Louis. And I think there was a term, I can't remember what it was called back when I was a police dispatcher, but there was a term that they used for essentially, like, when you use this term, it meant every available police officer from any available department is supposed to show up.
Like an APB?
Well, no, I can't remember what it is. It's they've changed all the radio systems in the St. Louis area. They're all on different systems. They're all digital. But back in the day, they had what they called a riot channel, and the riot channel was a channel that almost every police car in the St. Louis area had. So in other words, that was a way that if you wanted to, like if you're Richmond Heights and you want to get something out to all your neighboring communities, you would get on the riot channel. You'd say, we got a problem with a major disturbance on Big Bend at whatever.
Okay.
And apparently departments from all over the St. Louis area descended on Riverport. Like the State Highway Patrol was there, and and all the munis were there. Maryland Heights obviously was there because it's their venue. And it's just this crazy weird time. And Then there was a documentary put out that somebody did, which has been out for like 20 years or something like that. And the guy, it's interesting, one of the guys who was literally there at the show, and I believe he was like in the second or third row, is this guy he used to be at KSHE all the time, and he was part of the morning show, Carl the intern, Carl Middleman.
Yeah, he works on, isn't he on Mark Cox's show?
Yes, he's one of the producers on Mark Cox's show. And he was there, and what was interesting was, I believe at the time he was still working at KSHE, and I've heard him tell the story before that he was like down in front, and when this whole melee started, and he goes like, well, I got to go interview the band, because he had special credentials where he's supposed to go backstage to interview the band, and he finally makes his way through the riot and gets in backstage, and he says, I'm Carl Middleman from KSHE, and I'm here to interview the band, and the security guard goes, dude, they're gone.
Yeah, I bet they hightailed it. Well, I'm sure that there was a big police presence coming on, because at some point, I'm sure an officer had to have been intentionally or unintentionally assaulted.
Oh,
right? Like in a pull apart or something.
There were quite a few, unfortunately, officers who were, there were regular civilians who were injured. It was what they called a mass casualty event. Okay. Okay, you sent me this thing, which is sort of interesting. Let me open up this, and we'll talk about this for a few more minutes, and then we'll move on to our next segment. But the situation about the Riverview mayor accused, this story is so bizarre. Do you want to talk about this at all, or should we just pass
sure.
this?
So I don't have a link to it up to date because it's a municipal story, and I generally don't link to municipal stories unless they involve the state of Missouri. But allegedly, the mayor of Riverview, and for folks who don't know, if you take Highway 270 east and you go south on Bell Fountain, or you go south on Lilac, you could reach the municipality of Riverview, the Riverview Garden School District. And the mayor of Riverview reached out to a gentleman in Texas in 2022 and said that he really loved his carpentry skills. And he wondered if he wanted to come to Riverview and work. Now, you might think that's, as the kids say, a little sus. But the guy moved to Riverview and apparently, according to the Post-Dispatch story, may have lived with the mayor or moved in temporarily with the mayor. And then on this gentleman's first week on the job working for the city of Riverview, the mayor came up and hugged him from behind and made, I guess, several advances, according to allegations, that made this gentleman from Texas feel uncomfortable. Long story short, dude moved back down to Texas, took his hammer with him, and which goes to show, Brad, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the gentleman moves back to Texas and files suit against the mayor of Riverview. And, the story is pretty short. And let's face it, the guy seems a little sweet.
I read the story, and when you said it looks a little bit sus, I bet you if we would call up elected officials right now and say, hey, if you're looking for somebody to work for you, would you go on the internet and find some guy from Texas that you're saying, oh, I like your carpentry work. Why don't you come here to Missouri, which is only 600 miles away, and get a job working for my city? First off, where's the personnel stuff on that? Don't you have to jump through all sorts of...
I would imagine there's a little bit of paperwork, but who's to say that this gentleman didn't fill out the paperwork properly? And I don't think the allegation is that this gentleman from Texas brought his nail gun up here and just went right to work. I'm sure he probably went through some sort of hiring process. I just think the idea is that, I don't know, maybe if you're being recruited by a man via direct message on social media, I don't know. Maybe just he's not shooting his nails straight, Brad.
Like we don't have any carpenters here in the St. Louis area. You know what I mean?
That's right. Like we don't have a strong carpenters union here, Brad.
Right. There are some fine carpenters right here in the St. Louis area. Okay. We have to take a break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?